Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we're diving deep into I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer from 2006, a direct-to-video sequel that many horror fans see as a strange continuation of a beloved slasher franchise. But for us it's another chance to take a magnifying glass every single fatality, every attempt at survival, and the way the movie is built from the ground up, because while we're going to treat this as a kill count, we're also doing a full review, talking about the exteriors, the interiors, the performances, the safety features or lack thereof, the unique selling points, the metaphorical price of the film, and wrapping it all into a conclusion that gives you the big picture. But let's begin with the setup. Unlike the ocean side setting of the first two movies, this one takes place in the landlocked state of Colorado, already creating an exterior atmosphere that feels disconnected from the fishing boat mythology of the fisherman killer, but still we're given carnival grounds, barns, snowy streets, and wide mountain vistas as the exterior canvas. And it's here on a summer night during a town carnival that the film kicks off with a prank. Because of course it's never just a normal evening when a slasher is involved, so the group of teens, Amber, Colby, Zoe, Roger, and PJ, stage a fake scare involving the infamous fisherman hook-wielding killer to spook the locals. But things immediately spin out of control when PJ, caught up in stunt, accidentally falls to his death from the rooftop, his body crashing violently to the ground in front of horrified carnival goers. And even though this is an accident, it marks the first death of the film and therefore the first tick on our kill count, a tragedy that sets the tone because now the group has blood on their hands whether they wanted it or not, and in classic slasher tradition they decide to bury the truth, literally hiding evidence and swearing to keep their secret, believing no one will ever know. Yet as the title promises, someone always knows, and 1 year later ominous text messages begin arriving with the familiar threat, "I know what you did last summer." So even before more deaths occur, the movie sets up the paranoia of being stalked, the guilt that rots from within, and the exterior landscapes of Colorado turn colder, snow-dusted streets and barns becoming hunting grounds for a new cycle of terror. And now we must look at the interiors of the film, though briefly because they are less atmospheric than the exteriors. Consisting mostly of small houses, barns, a police station, and plain interiors that don't create claustrophobic dread but do serve as neutral backdrops for the drama, with only the carnival setting at the beginning providing a splash of chaotic color. But what the interiors lack in intensity, the performances are supposed to carry. And here's where the film struggles, because Brooke Nevin as Amber tries her best to channel the energy of a final girl, attempting to balance guilt, determination, and fear. Yet she often comes across as generic rather than iconic, while David Pietkow as Colby leans into arrogance and denial. Tori DeVito as Zoe gives a brief burst of life but is soon dispatched. Ben Easter as Lance provides some mild love, interest material, and Don Shanks embodies the fisherman physically, though the menace is weakened by writing that turns him from a vengeful mortal into a supernatural revenant. And because of these lackluster performances, the deaths carry less emotional weight than they might have, but we still must log them carefully because this is the heart of the kill count. So after PJ accidental death, the next to go is Zoe, and her death is the first one truly executed by the fisherman himself, as she's stalked and brutally impaled with the hook, the weapon plunging through her with cold finality. And for fans of slashers, this is where the body count truly begins, the hook gleaming, the gore briefly shown though toned down by budget limitations. And Zoe's death devastates the group because now the legend is alive, the past secret is unraveling, and their numbers are shrinking. Soon Colby too meets his end, his arrogance failing to save him when the fisherman strikes again, slashing and impaling him in a scene that's meant to echo the poetic justice of slashers past. Deny responsibility, get punished brutally, and the count rises, followed by supporting characters who are picked off one by one in barns, streets, and homes. Each death adding to the tally, though none with the creativity or brutality of the original films, yet still giving us blood to record, until eventually we reach Lance, whose chase and death are extended to build tension but still end in the same cold hook-driven conclusion. And then of course we arrive at the climax where Amber, as the final girl, faces off against the fisherman in a showdown staged inside a barn filled with hay and shadows, where she uses her wits and survival instinct to fight back, seemingly defeating him, though the supernatural twist reveals that the fisherman cannot die in the conventional sense because he is no longer human but a cursed revenant tied to the sins of those who hide their crimes. And this twist, while unique, shifts the fisherman from human vengeance to mythological bogeyman, altering the very DNA of the franchise, and it's here that we can discuss safety features metaphorically. Because in this film the characters rarely display the instincts or intelligence that could have helped them survive longer, making poor decisions and failing to rally adults or law enforcement effectively, leaving them vulnerable and easy prey, though Amber's resilience provides the one glimmer of effective safety, showcasing her as the only character capable of surviving through determination. Yet overall the movie removes most safety nets, creating an environment where the teens are doomed almost from the start, and then comes the question of unique selling points, which are few but present. The shift in setting from coastal town to snowy mountain community is unique, though underused, and the decision to make the Fisherman an immortal revenant is certainly a change, though one that many fans found unsatisfying, and in terms of price metaphorically speaking. The film costs the viewer impatience, requiring you to overlook its budgetary limitations, wooden performances, and predictable plot in exchange for a modest kill count and a continuation of the franchise's mythos. But even if the price feels steep for casual viewers, completists of horror history may find value in seeing how the legend of the Fisherman was reimagined in 2006. And so in conclusion for this first major chunk of reflection, we can say that while I'll always know what you did last summer lacks the polish and intensity of its predecessors, it still contributes to the lineage of slasher cinema with its exteriors of snowy carnivals and barns, its interiors of bland small-town spaces, its uneven performances, its non-existent safety features, its weak but existent unique selling points, its questionable price for horror fans, and most importantly its kill count. PJ by accident, Zoe by hook, Colby by hook, Lance by pursuit, and several supporting characters. Proving that no matter how far you travel inland, no matter how many years pass, and no matter how hidden you believe your secrets to be, the Fisherman will always know what you did last summer, and he will always return to claim more lives, keeping the hook sharp and the count alive. And as the movie pushes forward from the initial tragedy and first set of kills, what becomes clear is that I'll always know what you did last summer tries to graft the slasher formula onto a different kind of horror tone, almost like a ghost story wrapped in a slasher's cloak. And this creates a strange rhythm in how deaths are staged, because unlike the first two films where the Fisherman was an angry human avenger hunting with precision, here he manifests almost like an unstoppable apparition, appearing suddenly, shrugging off damage and pursuing with supernatural persistence, which alters the texture of every kill scene, making them less about who the killer is and more about the inevitability of punishment. So as we move through the kill count we see how each death is framed to reinforce the curse. Like Aura of the Fisherman, after Zoe's shocking demise, the group falls into panic and suspicion, their interiors, bedrooms, barns, police station interviews, becoming settings of paranoia where whispered conversations and fearful glances dominate, and the camera often frames them against blank walls, low-lit hallways, and snowy exteriors that highlight their isolation, reminding us that safety is an illusion and the killer can materialize anywhere. Colby's death particularly illustrates this new style. He is cornered, tries to flee, but the Fisherman appears with unnatural speed, and the hook slices through with brutal efficiency, the sound design amplifying the metallic scrape and wet impact even if the visual gore is toned down for budget. But it still counts as a violent fatality that raises the tension. The kill count thus far tallies PJ, Zoe, and Colby. But we know more will follow because slashers thrive on escalating numbers. And so we move to Roger and Lance, supporting characters whose roles are designed less as fully fleshed individuals, and more as fodder for the Fisherman's rampage, their arcs serving to pad the kill count and reinforce Amber's eventual rise as the sole survivor. Roger's fate is grim. Stalked through snowy carnival grounds and barns, the Fisherman finally catching him in a claustrophobic corridor where the hook pierces his chest and lifts him in a display of brute force, another body falling, another tick on the tally. Lance, meanwhile, lasts longer, given chase sequences that attempt to draw suspense out of his struggle, but despite his attempts to resist, the hook prevails, and his demise is bloody and final, leaving Amber increasingly isolated. If we zoom out to review perspective again, the exteriors remain one of the film's more interesting though underused assets. Colorado's snowy, small town landscape gives a different kind of backdrop to the Fisherman's black slicker, making him look like a shadow carved against white snow, a contrast that could have been haunting if framed with artistry. But instead many shots are flat and lack cinematic menace, robbing the killer of the gravitas that the seaside fog once gave him. Interiors too continue to suffer from bland design. Barn interiors, with hay bales, bedrooms that look like television sets, and a police station with little atmosphere. But these generic spaces ironically enhance the kill count because the Fisherman's hook adds the only real texture to otherwise sterile rooms. Performances remain serviceable at best. Brooke Nevin, tasked with carrying the film, starts to show a sharper edge as Amber loses everyone around her, her facial expressions tightening, her tone of voice growing more frantic, her movements more desperate, though the script doesn't give her much depth. The accumulation of deaths around her creates weight that she channels into the final girl archetype, and by the climax she embodies resilience if not iconic strength. The rest of the cast continues to fade quickly, their fear, arrogance, confusion, and desperation dispatched one by one. But none of them make a lasting impression, which is why the kill count almost overshadows performance, because viewers remember the hook more than the characters. Don Shanks as the Fisherman at least brings physical menace, his broad build and deliberate movements giving weight to the hook. And though his transformation into a revenant undermines the grounded realism of earlier films, his presence still anchors the deaths in Thanks for My Videos.